Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Four times a charm, gentlemen. This was the movie I saw on Sci-Fi, and last night I watched it on Zumo with commercials, and it felt like I was watching it on Sci-Fi again. Like I was like, oh God, 7 years old, and it's you know what? It's still as good as I remember. For a B movie, still as good. Not better than the third
Any
one. Third one's still
movie.
my favorite.
Listen, Phantasm IV is made on $650,000.
Which is wild. I went on a bit of a deep dive with it too and found out that it was originally supposed to be a big budget. There was supposed to be a crossover. Bruce Campbell was supposed to be involved. This whole thing, and then they just tanked it. The studio was like, "Nah, we're good."
That's the Roger Avery one.
Yep.
That was still, it was like, that was like mid 90s that they started talking about that. It got killed. They made Phantasm 4. Coscarelli leaves open with Phantasm 4 the possibility to go back to that Roger Avery script and
That was
still do
smart.
it. And it was bounced around again in like 2006 maybe, somewhere in that range. It just they're just not going to get the budget. And I mean, you have an Oscar winner wanting to write Phantasm. Roger Avery co-wrote Pulp Fiction. And he
And
wrote a Phantasm script that they won't make.
Which is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Not that them not making it
Did you
isn't
read
awesome.
Did you read the script, or are you talking about the script itself, or just the fact that he wrote it?
The fact that he wrote it,
Mhm.
even the information given on what the plot is, and just to mention it, they do mention in the scene when they go to Los Angeles in the fourth film, they mention a little bit of the plot of Phantasm 1999 when they say this area is infected. Because they were going to go through with a whole infection storyline of like the tall man infecting people and it spreading like a disease. And it was going to be like, correct me if I'm wrong, it was going to be like Los Angeles was like a safe zone, right? New York was a safe zone, but the Midwest was just like up for grabs. And of course,
That's a bit
Reggie's.
on the nose.
Yeah.
That's a bit on the nose. Blue, blue, red. They probably didn't like the implications of that.
That scene you're talking about on Wilshire Boulevard,
Yeah.
they didn't know permits.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Thanksgiving morning.
Reggie's way of filming.
Thanksgiving morning, they went out there and did it. And they're
That's cool.
filming it, and they almost got caught. The cops roll up on them, and Angus sees them coming and just starts like picking flowers. Like that's what
Smart.
he's out there doing. He's picking flowers.
That's Angus. Good deal. The whole concept of global infection or nationwide infection and stuff like that, but it being through your mind, through incapacitating your ability to understand reality and stuff, is so meta. And I know I said meta. You guys can find me. You can email me at Kearns, Martin Kearns at readkearns.com and yell at me about that. That'll be fun. Or on social media if you want to. But it's true. It is meta, so fuck you. And it's true. It's got an Eldritch vibe to it. Everything about it fucks. I'm just going to say it. It's so good. And they didn't do it. And they still won't do it. And it's because studios are a bunch of little pansies now and they won't take a risk.
Yeah.
So when we watch the fifth one, I feel like there are some elements from what I've seen from trailers, but not the full thing. They just got bits and pieces. So like it was like Coscarelli saying thank you to Avery for writing the script because the realization of it getting done is not gonna happen, sadly. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I found when I've started like looking into Phantasm 5 stuff, Ravager stuff. There was a reboot trilogy planned that got canceled too.
Ooh.
Which, you know,
Ouch.
the reboot thing can be sometimes questionable in my mind, but what was planned was Coscarelli approved.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is good.
That's
But
always a good
how
sign, yeah.
do you know how they would have taken it? Did you get any information on how they would have changed?
Gotten
Would the
that.
plot been different?
I haven't gotten that far in it yet. I think it would have been some extent retelling, with more modern effects and bigger budgets and stuff.
Okay. Because I
But
feel
we'll
like if
we'll get to that.
I feel like if you were gonna do a like a remake, because I was actually thinking about this on the way home. My whole screenwriting mind was working. Like, how would I remake Phantasm? And it's a good film, so it's like you can really utilize the story, but then add certain elements to it from like the other films as like homages in my own way, but always leave it as ambiguous at the end, because that's what makes Phantasm so good. It's that ambiguous of ending of what the fuck is going on. Mike getting pulled through the mirror or through the hearse or him driving down a desert road at the end of 3 into 4.
I'm just super into is it real or is it not? That's the big thing. And then what is real and what is not real is kind of on the menu as well. And I'm so into that. I like the way they layer things in this franchise. It elevates everything about it. Let's do a little bit of what Phantasm 4 is real quick. We're still in the 90s, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we're in possibly the best of the 90s, right before it all went to shit, or at least we're getting closer to when it all went to shit. So it's 1999, and Phantasm 4 comes out, and once again, it just starts where 3 leaves off. This one's got a lot of reg. This is a
Yep.
reg-heavy movie, and that's
Yep.
okay by us.
And
Yep.
he's still
It's the
horny.
Reggie movie.
The
Oh
horniest.
yeah. Yeah.
He
But like right from the start, it's more menacing. Like you get the tall man walking down that dark hallway with the escort of the spears. It's like that's as menacing as he's looked in the whole series, really.
Yeah,
agreed.
agreed. And it's one of those things about this one is there's less comic. Anytime you got Reg on screen, there's some comedy to it because he's got a legacy of being a funny idiot. But there's less like purposeful comic relief in this film. I thought they were going for more of a badass foreboding vibe in 4.
Yes, absolutely.
So no one laughed at the part when he blew the shotgun through the creature through the ceiling. He was like, "Blow me." Come on, I was dying
No, that was
hysterically
funny
after
as
that.
hell. That was funny as hell.
Hmm.
No, that was good. But there's less comic relief.
Yes.
So one of the funniest parts for me, I think, was unintentional. The opening narration, I couldn't get out of my mind the Spinal Tap Stonehenge scene. Is it starts almost the same because it starts with where he came from, nobody knows, and then it just like goes into this whole thing. I'm like, Stonehenge.
You see where the inspiration comes from a little bit. I kind of like picking up on stuff like that. So, Reg, the road warrior. He's hitting the road, he's heading out, he's finding chicks, and he's not at all worried that they might be agents of darkness.
You talking
Still,
about Jennifer?
I
still,
am. Oh, Orbeez, as I call her. That's another scene where I laughed when he was like, "Oh darn!" When he so he picks up another woman on the road, and she's sleeping next to him, and Reg is a creeper. So Reg likes to creep up on sleeping ladies, and boy does he.
In his
So
defense, he heard some buzzing and he was like, "What the hell is this?" And he got
yeah,
a little scared.
that's
And I don't that this is again like reality and fake. Like you're on that thin line, so he's got to worry about that. Now, if he saw a set of
like how
tits,
Bill
then
Cosby was it? You mean?
listen,
Was there really a buzzing?
he didn't have a pudding pop, so we're all good with that.
You wanted to have your Kodak film?
But
See,
you would
so what
think
we're talking
you would
about?
think 4 movies in he'd be able to recognize that the woman he's picking up is not a woman.
Well, at this point, how many times has Reg banged Angus, the tall man? Twice, right?
yeah,
Probably
alchemy,
every time he said sex in 25 years.
I
that's his
mean,
curse.
that's wild. That's in real life, John's talking about, everybody. That's a wild statement you just made. Uh, poor Reg.
I mean, it's really probably about 25 years in movie time too. If you look
Yeah, you're
where
about right.
Mike starts to where he is in 4.
That's true.
Yeah,
And Mike's got his balls back a little bit in 4 too, but we'll get to that in a second. So Reggie, what we're talking about is Reggie getting bamboozled once again by a hottie and finding out she's not, she's not a safe person. And we're talking about when he pulls the covers off her or whatever, and she's got orbs for boobs, and it's hilarious. It's just hilarious. Then Reg has to deal with that situation.
just how they pop out. I was like, I admit I was laughing at that. I was like, boop, and I'm like, okay, like, what are we doing here? It reminded me of Dumb and Dumber when like Lloyd, Jim Carrey's having that dream sequence with I forget the character's name, and she undoes her top and it's like the headlights. I mean, as a
Yeah.
kid in
Mary Swanson?
1994, Mary Swanson, yes, there we go. I got your briefcase.
Yeah. Samsonite. I knew it started with an S. We're not going to do this the whole episode, I promise. But yeah, that's exactly the vibe. Brian's got it down. Mike's on a parallel storyline. He's on his own journey in this one. And what's Mike up to, guys?
He's traveling the desert. He's getting like the tall man's right behind him the entire time. That old woman from the first one, the psychic, she's definitely involved. Because I don't remember originally watching it as a kid. It doesn't because I never saw the first one. I never connected the two. But then you see the fourth one, she's just there laughing, and she's there when the tall man, Jeremiah Morningside,
Jebediah
is
Morning.
sitting there. Jebediah, wow, Jeremiah. I don't know where I get Jeremiah. Jebediah Morningside. She's with him too. So the question comes up is she really the phantasm affecting this whole thing?
Ooh, that's a good idea.
That's
That's an idea.
like because she laughs manically, disappears, does it again, and it's like she kind of starts it because she kind of warns Mike in the first film, like you have to overcome your fear and kind of warning him, and she knows everything that's going on.
Like
That's
the
just
Oracle and the Architect and the Matrix. Maybe she's the other side of the coin to the
ooh,
tall man.
okay.
That could be something like that going on with reality. And this could be they could be Jungian too. He could be doing like the whole Freud, the ego, super ego, id. Everybody loves to fuck with that stuff. I did it in one of my books for a second. It just is a thing. So I think maybe we've got something like that, the dichotomy going on with them. But by the way, the footage, is there deleted footage deleted footage from the first movie used in
Yes,
4? Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
and that
I'm proud of
ending,
myself.
worked out. We'll probably cover it later, but how Coscarelli filmed that in 1979, the ending of 4 with Reggie and Mike. I don't mind talking about it now. Um, it was so pinpoint with the dialogue, like the voiceovers and stuff. How and how the actors react. Like, did you hear that and stuff? I'm like, it's 1979, so 79, 89, 98, 20 years later, you redo this, you do the same scene, and you get it pinpoint 20 years later. I'm amazed by that. That's
It's
crazy.
in his
It's a
DNA.
phantasm. That's a
Yeah.
phantasm right there in
It's a
screenwriting. Like, that's us filming, like, let's say we're filming something in like a scene or something. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use it 20 years later and put voiceovers, and it's gonna make total sense. Like, it's it's remarkable for me as like a screenwriter and stuff, just a maker, because it's crazy.
Yeah.
And you think about it, that you have that scene to close. You feel like, all right, he's wrapped up this series. Anything he does after this is either like money grab or whatever, but it's not. He never intended for it to be the last one. That was never a plan. It's just that like a poignant moment to end what in a lot of ways is the most emotionally deep Phantasm movie. You have Mike spending a lot of this movie trying to die.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he writes his
He's
will.
trying to hang himself. The tall man won't let him die.
Which is another
Anybody
reason
else
why
can die, but not Mike.
we were thinking about that as like because this is Mike's story. Mike's driving the story kind of thing. Mike, tall man, could be part of Mike's psyche, not allowing him to die but torturing him. It could be an allegory, or not even an allegory, a metaphor for anything you want to go with. His depression, his self-loathing, whatever you want to do. It's all there, man. And then that's like why I like the fact that Don is Coscarelli is able to keep you guessing in this way, because anything that makes me think in this way, I'm cool with, even if it's a silly movie with Orbeez in it and whatnot. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I'm gonna start calling them that
I
now.
like Orbeez.
They're
They are. Well,
Orbeez.
I mean, they became Orbeez the second I saw them on her boobs. I was just like, "Geez." And I usually watch it. I have no time for the listeners, so I watch these things streaming from my phone if I can, sometimes while commuting, while driving, and also like when I'm downstairs working out. I'm not watching it as I'm driving. I'm listening and I'm aware of it, officer. Um, you narc. But I also do it in the basement when I'm working out or something like that, and the kids come downstairs, and I'm just like, yoink! Like I gotta keep the remote close when Reggie's on screen. Just gotta pause that right away.
As long as they're not repeating "fuck you, Lucky Charms," that
They
line
would.
still holds onto me. Still, just saying.
I'm sure it does.
It does. I
Um,
repeated it the other day to someone. I was like, I saw Leprechaun. They were like, yeah, and I was like, yeah. And this line from it just stick with me. They were like, what was it? And I was like, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms." They're like, "That's a great line." I was like, "Yeah, it
it is a good
is."
line, man. It is a good line. So what we could have gotten from this movie would have been grand scale with Bruce Campbell and a nationwide epidemic where this is like a sickness or an illness taking over all the people in the country. You have safe zones, you have resistance, you have a pretty cool concept, much grander concept. Yet it boiled down to what 4 actually is. And what is the
Mhm.
big struggle with 4? What are we dealing with? Is he just running around? Reggie, do we just have Reggie and Mike running away from the tall man again or running towards him again? What's going on?
Well, Mike is running towards the tall man, and Reggie is kind of running after Mike,
He's like forced. Like,
which, yeah. Reggie's
Compelled.
almost at this point, yeah, compelled to follow Mike everywhere.
Okay. As
And it's
as it, every great foil is.
like, and the thing with this, with 4, is with the tall man too, is how they humanize him and make him more evil at the same time.
yep.
Ooh,
And
tell me
just like,
more.
so like one of the things that stuck out to me is really right at the beginning, the first time Reggie and the tall man are in the same space, he calls him small man. It's
Ah,
decades, decades of this cat and mouse back and forth, and the tall man couldn't even care to know Reggie's name. He's
great.
just small man
That's
to him.
cool.
That
It
is
just
great,
shows the
actually.
evil.
That you're an insect to me.
But like every moment that Angus is in there, it's like the tall man up another level. He's just like
Yeah.
everything, more spears. And he won't let Mike die. He won't let Jody be dead. It's
Yeah.
just like this mess of like I've taken over these 3 people's lives entirely.
Do you think he gets
Yeah.
worse with each incarnation? Like after he dies, he comes back as just a worse tall man. Like he's just more evil.
Mhm. And this whole thing sort of plays back into the, is this all just Mike's head? Like
It kind of feels that way.
at the
I'm
at the
kind of
end
on
of the
that
first
team.
at the end of the first Phantasm, did Jody really die in a car crash? And Mike has never processed it, and this is what's happened. And Reggie is simply following him to try to save his friend and get him help, and he just can't do it.
That could be there. There's also the whole Reggie's on his own journey thing because of his
Hmm.
loss too. But that does happen in pursuit, but you could still say that Reggie lost his family because he was obsessed with helping Mike. There's a whole thing there.
Hmm.
There's a whole
Yeah.
thing there. Loss is a big part of this franchise. 4 is definitely more dire than 3 was. I think I like the tone of 4 a lot. A lot of people there's a lot of hate out there for 4, which
Yes.
I
Yeah,
thought
there
was
is, and
interesting.
I realized when I finished watching 4 again how much I've fallen in love with this franchise.
Yeah.
It took I saw the first one when I was young and didn't fully comprehend it and didn't love it. It was fine, but I didn't love it. I watched it later, older. And I was like, all right. And then I went down all the sequels and these are kind of diminishing returns, but not anymore. Not anymore. They all really work together.
Would you consider Phantasm, like we were talking about Serpent in the Rainbow last episode? Would you consider Phantasm as that like a mature horror film, the first one, just because of the layers they go through with the fantasy and the reality and all that?
Yeah, I think Phantasm, the original, definitely benefits with it as you get older.
Okay,
Yeah.
And like
agreed.
and then the ones following, like you almost have to be older to get 4. If you're 16, 17 watching 4, a lot of the action stuff could resonate, but a lot of the other stuff isn't gonna hit you yet.
I avoided it as a kid, to be honest with you, because it felt like watching a Charles Bronson movie. It was too old for me.
Okay.
I'm not to say that Charles Bronson movies don't kick all the ass. They're awesome. But like Death Wish and stuff like that had a dark and tone and things. Yeah. That really wasn't for a 7-year-old, but if you
Oh,
picked up
God,
Pet
no.
Sematary, you could get into that. But you couldn't really Phantasm was a tough ride for a little kid because there were so many adult themes. So I think you're onto something with that.
Watching the fourth one, I'm for the first time when I was young, like I said, 7. The only things I remember is him, like I said, him in the desert, which is what I was talking about, and then seeing the explosion. I was like, okay, and God forbid, sci-fi never showed the orb scene on TV. I just saw orbs and a woman like on the ground, and that's it. And it's like, all right, I don't know what the hell happened, but okay, shit's going down. But watching it, I agree that I feel like Coscarelli was going deeper with that, and I do think with Jody something happened, and if you want to go like this, that Mike can't accept that fact, and then he even mentions it. He's like, I didn't really die in a car crash, and he's like, no, I really died in a car crash. It's like, did you die in a car crash, Jody? Did you not? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on here?
I would like some concrete closure on the. I don't want it to have an open-ended ending. I feel like we deserve more than that. I do love that it makes you think and stuff, but I also would like for this particular franchise to end with, "This is the truth."
I don't even know that they know what the truth is. I'm
I
not
know
sure
Don
Coscarelli
Coscarelli
knows
knows.
anymore.
I think he
I'm not
does.
sure he does anymore. I think he's
Just give
sort
him
of
some more ketamine. Get him into the vibe. He'll tell you.
It's a George R. R. Martin situation. I'm still writing this. I know how it's going to end, but you'll
He's an
never know.
asshole.
Um,
That was a money grab. He was told not to finish the stories by HBO. That's my take. Listen,
that would be
George,
so
because you're
scummy.
definitely going to be tuning into this podcast for sure. This is my opinion of you. Give the fans what they want, you schmuck. In his
Yeah.
defense, which I rarely come to, those books were coming out like in the 80s,
Yes.
right? Game of Thrones, the first one, or maybe even the late 70s.
It's the first
Not
one
sure.
started, I want to say in the 80s, and then it was like, all right, let me take 500 years to write book 2, and then book 3 comes out quick, and then real quick on a
Yeah.
tangent, book 4, it's all the supporting characters, guys, from
And
all the
I
3
ordered
books.
5. I ordered book 5 from the UK because it was going to get to me 2 days earlier than the US release. That's how excited I was back then for the franchise. Cuz that was like season 2 or 3 on HBO. So I was actually in the new story. And I
Okay.
read that book in 2 days. I was working in the Bronx back then. I took a day off work. Marilix, it's true. I wasn't sick at all. And I remember we lived in our little dinky apartment. And I actually got into Game of Thrones because of the wife. Hey, the wife. Do you know when the first Game of Thrones story? The look I'm getting right now is amazing. Do you know when the first Game of Thrones story came out? Like the book. Okay, so she read them pre 2000. So that doesn't help us with when they came out. But Ryan's doing some research. All right, got it. And when we saw that it was coming out on HBO, Kim's the one who told me the books are awesome because she read them like 10 years before. So
Ne-
when was the first one?
August 1st, 1996, ironically.
Huh.
1996. I was agreeing with you. I thought it was 80s, but 1996
No,
he wrote the
that's
first one.
fine. All right, that works. So
The
that's
one
been out forever. But yeah, he sucks. He's slow.
well, yeah, but
Back to the meat and potatoes.
that interview with Stephen King he did, that was pretty good.
Oh, that was
I'll give him
good.
that.
That was good. No, I don't hate George R. R. Martin. I'm just pissed that he's a slow fuck. Um,
He gave us
Stephen King
Elden
writes 6
Ring.
pages a day. Miyazaki gave us Elden Ring.
All right, he wrote Elden Ring. He gave the lore.
He had RR write some lore, and he even talked about it on a Late Show. He was like, "Yeah, I wrote about 5,000 years of history, loose history." So he did like basically a mock-up of the family lineages of the gods that they didn't even use, by the way. So
Hey,
I'm not going to give him too many kudos there. This is going left. I'm going to bring it back to center. I'm getting angry.
my bad. Reel it in.
No, you're good. You brought in Elden Ring, something I love, and George R. R. Martin, something I'm mad at.
There's
But
I'm no
King,
Dark Tower reference tonight. No Dark Tower reference.
you already said Stephen King. It's over. Stephen King, though, just to finish up this tangent, does 6 pages a day, 6 edited pages a day, like clean pages. What a page is to him, I don't know, because word processor. Is it a Microsoft Word page? Maybe. Is it double spaced? I don't know what that might mean, but 6 pages a day is what he does, and that blew George's mind when he told him that.
Oh yeah, it
And I've
did.
known that forever. Yeah, it blew his mind. He's like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, you don't just sit on the couch and eat Butterfingers and think about all your money. No, I write. I'm a writer, George." So, anyway, back to Don Coscarelli. And actually, one of my issues with this franchise is, and that 7 years going by between films is a bit of a good way to destroy any sort of like major box office impact, and may have been why the fourth movie was never given a chance to succeed.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
do you guys think?
being direct to video and not getting the distribution it deserved
Yeah.
definitely helped because I mean, studios to a degree did invest in 2 and 3, but they
Yeah.
only, it was sort of like half-hearted investment. Like, here's some money, but we're not going to do the work to make sure people see it.
Right.
So then you get
It's sad.
4 with like no money, like so
Mhm.
little money. The Civil War scene, Coscarelli donate that's a $200 casting.
Mhm.
He
Yep.
donated $200 to a group of Civil War reenactors to get them to do that, which is also why it looks good. You didn't just
Yeah,
get a
yeah.
bunch of extras to run around. You
He's
got
so
people who are
clever. I
committed
really
to
have a lot of
making it look
respect for
great.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I mean, that's a driven guy right there.
That's a true director who can stretch a budget. You think about this. Coscarelli. I mean, there's other directors who can stretch a budget, but Coscarelli is like on my like top. If I had to do a top three, Coscarelli's the top one.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say number two is it reminds me a lot of Robert Rodriguez, especially with his first film El Mariachi, or how he like stretched. Oh God, how much was it? Like wasn't it like $1,000, I think, or something? And he stretched, or 800. He stretched a whole budget in 1993 to film that. It's like what Coscarelli did, and he's done it with. Well, he did it with this recent one for because he had so much money. But that going back to the direct to video, it's like it kills a franchise once you do that because like you can have a good fan base, but you need to get it out to more people. And this film would have done, I think, well in theaters because you talked about the third one. It ran for 2 weeks in two cities and was the number one box office hit for those cities. There would have been no problem for the fourth one, especially if it
Mhm.
was advertised correctly and if it was put in like an October Halloween time slot or time area, unlike the second one, which we talked about that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder though too, how many people drove out to those cities because that was the only place
Yeah.
to see it too.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think you get diminishing returns if you open it on 2,500 screens. Yeah,
Right.
I don't think you get like a huge blockbuster hit that way. But I think you do enough so that you keep funding sequels with a legitimate budget.
Which would have been great for the franchise to kind of end on. Well, it doesn't truly end, so we'll let people know. Well, first off, let's see how do they land the fourth movie, gents? What do we go? What happens at the end? Tall man dies.
Old man was
Tall man
hanging.
lives. Tall
He
man's
Yeah,
t-
hanging.
he was hanging,
as
and
much as the
Mike let
tall
him
man
go.
ever dies.
Right. They temporarily defeated the tall man. Was there a cliffhanger? Was it definitive?
Mm,
Nothing like the end of Phantasm 1.
I agree with John with what he said. It was like it feels like I mean, even though Coscarelli had ideas to continue the franchise in other avenues, it does feel in a way like it's an ending because you have Mike and Reggie driving into the night, hearing their future voices there and Mike going, "It's going to be okay." No, it's not, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You're going to get recast in the sequel, by the way, Mr. Baldwin. All right? It's not
So,
good.
of the cast, he's the one that most did not want to do this one.
Really?
He came back because he got the producer credit.
Wow.
That was
They had to sweeten the pot.
that was his deal. Hey,
Was he looking for more
Reggie
money?
was always down. I think he was. It feels more from what I've read that he was just sort of done. Like he didn't necessarily want to keep doing Phantasms.
See,
Which
actors,
I get. You're making that movie for 20 years
I get
from the
it, but
time you're a little kid.
that's your bread and butter. That's how you get started. There's so many actors who are like, "Oh, I don't want to do this role," like Daniel Craig and James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do it for the rest of my life, and then he does No Time to Die, and then he did an interview and he was like, I kind of like miss being Bond. I'm like, yeah, because you're making a lot of money and you're realizing that you've lost a property that's now going to a snot-nosed little kid probably on Amazon.
Which I mean it's fair, but Mike and James Bond are like very different levels.
Fair.
You know, like
Fair.
He
Fair.
wanted to
you're
move on.
yeah,
He wanted to move on and
you're
grow
Mike
into
and
something else.
yeah, like you get to a point with all that. Mike is awesome, but and I think there is a testament to the kind of person Coscarelli is in the casts of these movies that
Mhm.
none of these guys are going to get rich off Phantasm movies, but they all keep coming back to do them.
Right. And that's the
Like that
thing.
core four just
It's
keeps
almost
coming
like
back. And Angus will keep
Don
working
is
with
the
him
tall man.
wherever. Yeah. And like I mean, even the people that weren't in this wanted to come back. Like Kevin Connors, who was Tim in 3, he wanted to come back,
I wish they did bring him
but
back.
like you can't just have the problem with bringing him back is the continuity. You can't
Right.
pick up where 3 leaves off and have Tim suddenly be 20.
Unless you do a time jump. Now, hear me out. You do a time jump where, like,
Well, I
Reggie
mean,
and
they certainly
I-
could have because
they
that's what the whole 4 is. The timelines in 4 get really like, all right, we're at Civil War. Oh, we're back here. Oh, we're here. We're here.
Mhm.
We're here. There's a lot of time jumping.
It goes from 98 to
Phantasm may be the
79.
most Phantasm may be the most unreliable timeline of any franchise.
Well, you don't really know where you are through, and that happens a lot in the earlier movies too. Like it has the
Mhm.
vibe of being a Dust Bowl Depression era setting. You don't really feel like you're in the 90s or 80s. The cars
Mhm.
stand out as being out of the right era that they're driving and stuff like that, right? Like it does. It's interesting.
The ice cream
Mhm.
truck, I feel, has like that. I When Reggie's driving it, I feel like he needs a coach and a buggy more, like with horses, because it's just that design. It's just the design, you know.
It's I don't know. I think they were going for a Mad Max vibe at one point, almost like with the road scenes.
Mad Max
Mhm.
meets pre-Evil Dead because well, Reggie is pre-Ash, comedy Ash, in my
Mhm.
opinion, in our opinions, I would say. Um, there's a lot of films that borrow from Phantasm, and they still utilize it today. I feel like from all of
Yeah.
them, one, two, three, four. I don't know about five. We'll watch in the next episode, but one, two, three, and four, you can see elements that have been used in other movies, whether it predates it or it's after. But Coscarelli does it with such a class, where it's like you have to respect him as a director and writer because he respects the art. That's the whole thing, and
Mhm.
I want to meet this man one day. I know John has, so knock on wood. I'm knocking on a wooden chair. We will
That
run
is
into
cool.
Coscarelli.
That is
I,
very
I
cool.
he's one of the people I don't think I've ever seen listed at a local con.
Hmm.
I don't know if I wonder how many of those he actually does. I bet it's not a lot.
He just shows up
I mean,
with a sphere in
any
hand.
way he can put a weekend in and make 25, 30 grand would probably be nice for him. I mean, he's not going to draw like Gina Davis or Susan Sarandon did this past weekend at Monster Mania, but he's going to make, I mean, he's going to get some diehard horror fans to come in and get pictures and signatures out. So I bet you he could do pretty well. He should be doing the circuit to fund the next
And
Phantasm movie.
he'd absolutely kill it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like that's not his speed though. I mean, based on having met him, and I mean, it's small venue, small audience, but it seemed like what was important to him was more the spending time talking to people
That's
Yeah.
cool.
than the quick autograph and hey, nice to meet you. Like, I'm glad you love my work. That kind of stuff. It feels like he wants to make connections with people more.
Man of substance. He would do well like doing Q&As at a big Comic-Con then, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
They could have him in the theater of at the DoubleTree for Monster Mania and put, 300, 400 people in there and do Q&A with him for 4 hours. And that'd probably make him happy.
He wasn't affected by
Absolutely.
Hollywood, and he wasn't affected, and it goes back to his
Might have been why he didn't succeed as much.
I
He
mean,
didn't bend the knee, as they say.
but that's well, I was gonna mention Tarantino, but Tarantino definitely bent the knee to Weinstein. But like Rodriguez, like you don't really see it. Like he did Spy Kids. For the rest of his career, he's been doing Spy Kids. Or yes,
Ryan, do you think Harvey molested Quentin?
with his
Or do you
feet.
think Quentin looked at Harvey's feet? Yeah. I think maybe that happened.
I mean,
We had a Cosby and a Harvey Weinstein joke in this episode, everybody.
Woof,
The fruit hangs low this week.
woof.
oh,
Oof.
whew, the smell of feet
Oof.
consuming. I was thinking of Tarantino because he came up today on my Instagram. He actually rebuilt his old video store in his basement, which I thought was cool. It
That
was
is
just,
sick.
but
It must
but
be
he
nice
was
to have that much money.
he
Right.
was yeah, he was just talking about film though, and he was just this would you guys would think was interesting. He was talking about the best films ever made where there's like no problems or anything, and I forgot. I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, one of the Jimmy Kimmel, and he kept talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre as that perfect film. It was
That's
one
cool.
of few, but that's the one that stuck out to me. I was like, yeah,
I mean,
go for the horror fan.
Texas Chainsaw is pretty close to perfect for what it is. Like, it's not like Oscar bait. Like, it's just this movie. Like, enjoy
And
this
That's what it
movie.
should be.
Be scared.
That's what he should.
Yeah.
that's what he
There's
said.
Sit, be
room to make.
enthralled.
Yeah, there's room to make those Oscar bait movies, but you need these movies too. These are fun.
Yeah, there's like you can get your heredities and stuff like that, hereditaries rather, out there and stuff, and get your problematics and your twisties and all of your things, your M. Night Shyamalan ding dongs. But when it comes down to, it's not racist, it's funny, everybody. But it's just when it comes down to like Texas Chainsaw or something like that, you don't need all that bells and whistles stuff. There's an equation. It's tried and true with some of these movie ideas. Just do it.
Yep.
Be, and do it with intention, get good actors who want to be there, and you're going to make a good movie.
And that's what
And
Don
stop
did.
remaking everything. And
Yep.
that's what Don did. But then they drove it into the ground a little bit. Or maybe not, actually. Maybe it just took him too long to see it through.
I would,
Is
yeah, I
that what
think
happened? He lost the thread?
minus not a lot of support. I feel from studios. It was really what
Well,
kind
they
of hurt him.
lost faith.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
studios suck. Their suits, they suck. It's just the way it goes. It's about money. This is America. So they're never going to choose art over money. And it did. It was
Mhm.
like they're probably thinking it was only 4 or 5 years from the previous one though.
Yes.
And it's still probably too long for them. Think about the
Mhm.
Avengers movies. What were they? 18 months apart?
Oh
Yeah.
They
God.
just hammer stuff down people's throats.
And
But that's also the benefit of the money too.
mhm.
Right.
You get that
The,
big chunk of money. Now we can do what we need to do.
the Incredible Hulk, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, did not make as much money because I
Oof.
went in the theater for that and I liked it because I
Nah,
was
it
excited for
sucked.
Edward Norton. The
Yeah,
Edward
the Ed
Norton one.
Norton one didn't suck as much as the Eric Bana Hulk,
Oh
but
man,
it did suck.
That one.
The Incredible
That
Hulk.
one's horrible. Incredible Hulk was more decent.
The Hulk was better in the Incredible Hulk, and Ed Norton's Ed Norton, so awesome. But everything else about the movie, including Liv Tyler's performance, was abhorrent. It was not great. That's
Sure.
my personal opinion, and it is subject to criticism.
No,
But yeah.
I'm fine with it. I sat in a theater and it wasn't as filled as Iron Man was on an afternoon. That's
Ooh.
yeah. I went to Iron Man when it came out in an afternoon. I was living in Fishkill, so I went to Lakeland High School. So I was traveling in between. So I
Gonna get
said,
doxxed so hard by some nerd. Some nerd's gonna be like, he's gonna send you like freaking horrible things in the mail now. He's gonna find you, Ryan.
"Well, you can send it to 646 Oakside Road." I don't live there no more, though.
oh
Just saying.
Lord,
Don't
oh Lord.
try the landline. It's not there anymore either. It's 914-962-3830. You'll get it dead.
Oh my God. Somebody has that number though. You're gonna get sued now. Now you're gonna get
Literally,
doxxed and sued.
someone's gonna get 8675309 to death because of you.
8675309.
309.
Is Ryan there?
Anywho, yeah. God. And you know people, if they got their teeth into something like that, it would be some unsuspect. It could be like a little old woman, and they would just destroy her life because fun.
I'm just
Um,
there's a memory I can't talk about right now. We'll just say that, but it is laughable.
I'm sure. I'm sure. We lost the thread on that. What were you saying before we went on that journey, Ryan?
Oh no, I was saying like going into a theater in the afternoon in 2009 to watch Iron Man and see it packed, to seeing the
Yeah.
Incredible Hulk a few months later at nighttime, and it's like
Yeah.
no one in there. It's like,
Sweet people.
but Thor was the same way, and I'll throw that. And Thor I shit on in the beginning, and then I saw it and I was like, I do like it. I do like this movie.
The first two Thor movies were solid. Anything you
Thank
get, I
you.
mean, it wasn't a Hemsworth.
Thank you.
He didn't hold it up either, though. Natalie Portman held it up. She can act like a freaking beast.
And she can rap.
She held that movie up. She can rap like a beast too.
And you have a Skarsgård.
Ugh,
Oh
so
yeah.
sick of him.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, he had a Skarsgård.
It wasn't Bill.
But
Actually, there's a Skarsgård in Zoolander I found out today.
no way. Which one?
Alexander Skarsgård. He's the one. He's behind. He's making food. He's like, oh, Derek should be over here soon. And he's like, Derek's gonna take time. He goes, no, he should be. He's one of the guys who get blown up when they're doing the whole gasoline fight. He's like, I gotta go pay for the
Yeah,
gas. Yeah, he's one of
I
those
didn't know that was
guys.
him.
I found out today. I was like, they're everywhere.
They
They
are everywhere. The Skarsgårds. They're reproducing under the cupboards.
the Skarsgård men.
Those bastards.
Sons of
Speaking of evil
bitches.
entities that are ever present and creeping upon us, the tall man's lurkers didn't
Oh,
go
I
out.
thought
Look
you
at
meant
Ken.
this guy.
Look at him. He is adorable. You know, he
No.
looks like the soot in Howl's Moving Castle right now. If you've ever seen it, he looks like the soot monster, or little soot demon things.
Oh.
So 4 ends, and our winners win, and then we kind of cliffhang until we get to 5, which is Ravager,
Yep.
and that
And
happens in early 2000s. Well, not
it's
early.
filmed over the course of like almost 10 years. Doesn't
Yep.
get its it premieres, I believe, in 2014, and
Mhm.
then full release in 2016.
Yep.
Which is wild. So that's what, 20 years?
And no one knew they
18
were filming
years?
it. Yeah, no one knew they were filming it either, which is crazy.
I mean, how could you?
How do you hide it? How do you hide that for 10
They
years?
just-
Well, I mean,
There's no big.
well,
There's got to be no big sets.
you start with filming at Reggie's house with
Which
just
is wild.
essentially just Dan Hartman, who directs Ravager, Reggie, and Reggie's wife. Like, basically, that's where it starts.
Don't forget the Penthouse posters, the Hustler posters,
Mhm.
and the Playboy posters in
Such a-
Reggie's room.
They make him so pervy. They make him so pervy. That's like his biggest character trait is how pervy Reggie is.
Mhm.
He's so bald, like, and not the elegant kind. You know, I'm not gonna point it out because it's rude, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Yeah, exactly. It looks good. You can walk through a park and people don't hide their children. Reggie looks like a creepy guy.
Especially once you put the ice cream man suit on him.
Oh, that was brutal. And
Oh,
you know that's purposeful.
when he dressed up in that suit at
Mhm.
the end, I wasn't expecting it, but I was expecting a good humor ice cream at the end of it too.
Uh,
But I
they're
mean,
leaning
if you
into
think
it.
about it, Reggie spent his sexual prime trying to
I
find
hate
his best friend. The
everything about the statement you
Yeah.
just made.
Reggie's sexual prime,
Ugh.
the peak of
Ugh.
Reggie's manhood was spent trying to find Mike.
I'm still
Ain't
convinced
fair.
he hooked up with Rocky. That scene was real. That wasn't a dream. That wasn't a dream.
Possible.
And
It's possible.
he accepted the tall man. So I mean, come on now. I mean, Reggie was open. It's cool.
Yeah, he accepted the tall man, and the tall man accepted him twice.
I love your spheres,
At
Reggie.
least.
You know what I mean?
Reggie.
That's it. The fact that he doesn't even say his name is almost more disrespectful because they've coupled.
Was it
Small
not as
men.
was it not good for you, tall man?
Oh,
It's-
that adds a
Definitely
whole
was.
other. That adds a whole other level to the disrespect of calling him small man.
oh shit.
Oh, good point. Good point. Didn't think of that.
Reggie was in the
But
pool.
that pretty much wraps us up with Phantasm IV, guys. There's not really a whole lot more to discuss. We are going to do Phantasm V, Ravager, next week. And that's got a little bit more to talk about
2 weeks.
in 2 weeks. We're doing a special
Yeah.
episode apparently before then.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
So,
because we got to sneak
yay.
April Fool's Day in.
Can't wait. I haven't seen that movie since the early
Man,
2000s.
Phantasm's franchise episodes got broken up twice. Once for Leprechaun and once for April Fool's Day.
Wait till we get some
I have
Puppet
So
to
yeah,
say
we'll do
Master.
that.
We have to make a solid vow with April Fool's Day. No spoilers.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can do that.
Because I feel like with that movie,
I can
you
do that.
say one thing, and it just after seeing it, and I still remember it vividly for how each scene is, you mess one up, and it's like it can spoil the whole thing. It's a great movie.
Yeah,
though.
we
It's
won't do
good,
it. We
great
won't do it.
slasher.
Will be good. But let's roll into top fives, boys. Ryan, you got some top fives for us?
Of course, I'm going cheesy. I did threequels. I went from sequels to threequels. Now we're gonna go with fourquels. That's what I'm calling it. Fourquels.
Orquels?
Fourquels. So
It's
it's
like a Tolkien elven word. Forquels.
might be, but fourquels meaning it's the fourth film of the any 5 horror film franchises. I was trying not to repeat, which was hard because my number one I've mentioned, and I have to go with it. But to start with number 5, Kearns, this is your favorite guy right now. This is Bride of Chucky from 1998. I've seen that movie 1,000 times on Sci-Fi. It's the 4th movie. Gets a girlfriend. To, oh God, Tilly. Tiffany.
Oh,
Billy.
yeah.
Tiffany.
Tiffany is the girlfriend played by Tilly.
Tilly. Yes.
Yeah, the actress's voice is very. I mean, I know exactly. I can see her face in my mind the second I hear her voice. She's like one of the most iconic voices in movies.
But I had such a hard time watching that as a kid.
Or maybe not iconic.
Oh, it's iconic, that screechy voice.
Identifiable.
Identifiable.
It's a better word for it.
Jennifer
Yeah.
Tilly, that's
I'm
her name.
sorry.
No, you're good. Help me remember her name. But it's a good movie. It's kind of going more into the comedy element at that time, but it still has that horror. It's got John Ritter in it,
Yeah.
which is nice. I like John Ritter.
That is nice.
You come knock at his door too, which was cool. So-
All right, what's the number 4? You're done. Your time is running out.
You
number
got
4.
cut off. with the
So-
Three's Company reference.
What? You guys know, Mr. Roper. I was a Don Knotts guy though. Number 4 is Psycho 4: The Beginning, from 1984.
Oh yes.
I do I like it. It's from my childhood. I watched it a lot of times on Sci-Fi. Him calling the news, the radio host, and he's like, "I'm Norman Bates," and he goes through his like whole history, and the radio host kind of finding out who he is. I do like that. And spoiler, it goes full closure because he burns the house down, and it's like it's a moment where he's released, and he can be normal, quote unquote, with his family, but they never did Psycho 5, so we'll never know. My number 3 is 2011 Scream 4. Went to the midnight opening for it because I was so excited to see it. I am a Scream fan, and it didn't disappoint. I liked how they connected the original film, the first one to the fourth one, how they put a little like sequences from past films, homages, talking about what happened. It was a nice like history filler as well as introducing new characters, and it brought back the team of Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, who Kevin Williamson didn't write the third Scream. He left, and that's why we have Jay and Silent Bob making a cameo. But that's a whole other story. Number 2, Friday the 13th, Part 4. It's a great movie. Introduces Corey Feldman as Tommy, who I love the part 6 Tommy, but the part 4 Tommy, he's got the makeup. Like, he beats the shit out of Jason, and it's so awesome by looking like Jason from the first film. I just, and I think Crispin Glover's in it too, which is awesome. Yeah, he is. All
Like
right,
the
yeah.
creepy dance. The
Yes.
creepy dance.
The
Yeah.
and it's just it's an interesting movie too. I won't get into it, but it's an interesting one. And then number 1, I gotta go with Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, guys. Come on.
That was one of the best ones. That's one of the best 4s of all time.
Yes.
I'll never forget the coal chute scene in that movie. That lives rent free in my mind. When she's in there and he's stabbing through the coal chute,
Just
that's so
pushing
scary.
There's
It
so
is that's a very frightening film.
there's so many good
They did it well.
Probably also the funniest moment in a Halloween movie when the
In the barn?
townies are chasing Michael Myers and they catch the guy in the bushes and we
Fred
counted
Hollister.
when I was in high school we counted how many times they shot poor Ted Hollister. It was in the 30s. And then the guy just walks over and parts the bush and shit, Earl, it's Ted Hollister.
It's like, you son of a bitch. They like
Ted.
again, spoiler, they blow Michael apart too. Because this was
Yeah.
supposed to end the series, and he escapes.
Was that the one where they get him in the police station? That's like a Terminator moment where they just shoot him 400 times in like the police station, or is that a different one?
So that's 5. That's the ending of 5.
That's 5,
In the
okay.
fourth one, they're like, we got to call the sheriff station, and they go to the police station, and they find all the bodies dead, and that's got one of the cool scenes because it shows how ferocious Michael is. Because that whole return, they want to show him being an animal, and he tore some heads off. They got some like beheadings in there, like in between where the and this is why I'll never put my head ever again between a stairwell and the banisters, is you see the guy's body in between the banister and the head just there, and I'm like, what did this son of a bitch do right now? But yeah, that was my top 5.
That's fun. So,
Yeah,
welcome back, everybody, or
but
just me for that matter.
but I heard what John's
Let's hope
going
that
with,
doesn't
and
happen again.
I want to hear these movies. We were talking about it a little
Nice.
earlier today
Very
because I was like,
nice.
what's going to be your top 5 today? And he told me, and I went, damn, I just went with Four Ghouls. But
So in tribute to the time traveling, time hopping, dimension
All right, what's
hopping
yours,
of
John?
Phantasm
Before
4,
my computer dies again.
I went with 5 time hopping, dimension confusing, mind messes of movies. So my number 5, Silent Hill.
okay, I see that.
There is
Okay.
no reliable timeline in Silent Hill. It is everywhere. From the moment of the From the
Okay.
moment that car crashes and the daughter disappears, there is no reliable timeline or
By
dimension that's
design.
going on in that movie. And it's wonderful. My number 4,
That's great too. I love that.
starring Nick
Yeah.
Cage, Color Out of Space.
Okay.
I listen, I mean the story is fine. It's not like
Cool.
extraordinary. The use of color in that movie is probably as good as I've ever seen in a movie, as at least for me. Like there's purples and just these vibrant colors all over the place that really stand out. Number 3 is From Beyond, directed by Stuart Gordon.
Yep.
One of the multiple collaborations
Okay.
of Jeffrey Combs and
Never heard of
Barbara Crampton.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And it's scientists trying to develop a machine that will allow them to access
Okay.
their sixth sense. When you access sixth senses, you bring back bad things.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yep. And things fall apart quickly.
That's true. If you're aware of
I
a
say
higher
bring it.
dimension, you catch the attention of the higher dimensional beings.
So number 2 is where I cheated a little bit. Because number 2 is actually 2 movies, but they have to go together.
Okay.
It's not like
Okay.
sequel, but it's the same in 2 movies that have no concrete timelines where time is very unreliable. They go together. So it's Resolution and The Endless. So these are directed by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Resolution, a man
Yeah.
traps his junkie friend and tries to detox him over the course of the weekend, and it's
Love
just
these guys.
the time is all over the place. And then The Endless, you meet a lot of the same characters as 2 brothers try to make sense of the cult that they escaped as children. And you have to watch them. You have to watch them together. So they have to be on a list together.
That makes sense. I watched The Endless
Yeah.
without watching Resolution, by the way, and The Endless it holds up in quite a few good ways.
Mhm.
I can't recommend that enough to
Mhm.
anybody. That if you were gonna watch like that was a Black Triangle is another one of those types of movies where the time is weird and you've got to figure out what's happening.
Benson.
That's super good too. But I really love Moorhead. What's the other guy's name? I remember Moorhead.
They have a few.
And
they
Benson,
did Spring,
yeah, they're
which
fantastic.
I threw on a list
they're a
before.
great duo. They
Yep.
need to make more
They
films
have
too, because they have another great one too.
Something in the Dirt, which is I think their newest one. There might be one after that.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Synchronic. Something in the Dirt sort of goes back to their really low budget.
I might have to watch that
roots,
one.
but
I haven't seen Something in the Dirt.
yeah, and you can watch The Endless without having seen Resolution, and it'll make complete sense.
Yeah.
But there's parts of it that, like, after you watch Resolution, you watch The Endless. It's like, oh, those guys.
Mhm.
Oh, that makes sense. Way more sense now.
Yeah. I got to do it. I got to do it again. Now, if that's your 2,
Number
what are you
1,
laughing at over there?
Event Horizon.
If that's your 2, what could your
Yes.
1 be? What could beat that?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
solid.
like, but it's also
Solid.
another one I think benefits.
It's one of
with
my favorites of
age.
all time.
I think,
Yes.
like watching it when it first came out, was early 20s. It was great. I loved it, but it didn't fully work for me because you're watching horror to be scared and that's it. And it does that, but there's so much else going on that you don't really get until you can sit and watch it maturely.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
There's a psychological edge to it that makes the movie much scarier. When you can identify with Sam Neill's character's journey
Yeah.
and like sympathize with it,
the
that's when
ending
you
of
know
him,
that you're getting older and
Like,
you're
well, I
getting
was gonna
kind of
say
fucked
him
up.
turning around with his eyes all blown out. You're like, yeah, I
But-
get your pain, man. Get your pain. You've succumbed to the system. But I was thinking about it, rewatching it because I actually watched it a few months
The thing
ago.
is,
It's
he
very
welcomed it.
it's got some
thing.
Hellraiser vibes going through that.
Oh,
Minus
for
the
sure.
chains. Like, oh yeah.
I mean, for atmosphere, yeah. For atmosphere, absolutely. I think it's super deep though. Event Horizon goes
And they're
goes
coming out with
hard.
a TV series soon.
On
On the
that
movie,
whole,
I think it's gonna.
like, I mean,
It's
Where's Hell
I'm
concept.
sorry. It's going to be by Amazon, I believe, and it's going to be a
Oh,
prequel,
you
and
just
it's
ruined
going
my
to
whole night.
explain what they went through in the other dimension, the Event Horizon.
I mean, I'll end up watching it, but I don't
No.
think you need to do
No,
it.
thank you.
Like, I don't think
It's like
that
not
needs to
revealing
be
the
It's
monster.
revealed.
this,
Yeah,
the
you
cash
don't
cow.
you don't do that.
Well, yeah.
It's
There
the
are so many better cash cows they
it's
could
dumb.
hit.
That's why
Like,
2025 sucks.
if I were
That's why
Amazon
right
and
there.
I were producing a series, I would go to Max Brooks today and say, "Let me make World War
Yeah.
Z right.
Yes.
Let me
I
make it
agree.
an Amazon series, 8 episodes, tell the story the way it was told."
I agree with that.
That would be great, actually. Max Brooks is a pretty chill
Oh.
dude too. He'd be down for that. He also likes money, I've heard. So, as one does. But yeah, no, I think he would enjoy that. When he said like, "Oh, that's a cool movie that they made
Yeah.
about World War Z," that should have been the tip off right there. And it was a cool movie for what it is.
You know, the zombies climbing the wall in Israel, like, you know, that ant style swarm up them. Like, that's an awesome visual,
Yeah.
but that's all that movie
Yeah.
really winds up being is awesome visuals.
Yeah. Agreed. They missed a few times.
Of course.
Missed opportunities. But anyway, we're gonna end on a happier note. Happier than Sam Neill's eyes being popped out.
Oh,
Let's see, what's a bit of trivia nobody knows about Event Horizon, John? Go. Lawrence Fishburne is the actor in the movie. It's not Samuel L. Jackson. All right, everybody. That was
Have a good
Phantasm
one.
IV. Okay.
see ya.
So we had a good time with that. We'll see you guys next week.
Be very